I'm on the floor. I can't be trusted anywhere near this man. Hi guys, it's Sarah. Welcome back to another video here on my channel. Today we are tackling the second book in the Throne of Glass series by SJM. This is the title story, Throne of Glass. The script for this is so long. I have no idea how long it's gonna translate, but I'm probably gonna have to film this in 2 parts, so if the lighting changes, bear with me. I currently have everything planned out to get these videos up to you in the next 6 weeks before Crescent City 3 comes out, so that we're all caught up before the book drops. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. If you're excited for this series, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. And without further ado, let's get into it. We open with our girl Celaena being carried through the salt mines. She's been in Endover for a year. She's scarred and shackled and being led around at sword point. We learned she had an incident 4 months prior where she snapped and killed 23 guards before almost reaching it to like the outlying wall. It was a suicide mission basically, but they didn't kill her, they kept her alive. Who's leading her? You might be wondering. That would be the captain of the Royal Guard, Kale Westfall. I will be calling him Kale. His name, I think, is technically Kale. Like it's Kale, I think is how you say it. I won't be calling him that. I'll be calling him Kale or Kale Chip or Lettuce Boy, depending on my mood. She internally thinks that it's so nice to hear a voice like hers because Kale is also from Rifthold, but then she also fantasizes about killing him and how that would also be nice because remember, she hates the king and he's the captain of the guard. He takes her into the meeting room where she sees the Crown Prince of Adarlan, aka my boy Dorian, the love of my life. This is my favorite SJM boy to exist. I said what I said. He's my favorite. He's sprawled in his chair with his little golden crown on, looking bored and sexy and perfect. She says he's achingly handsome and he couldn't be older than 20. She refuses to bow to him, so she gets thrown to the ground by this asshole named Duke Parrington. But Dorian is like, I don't quite comprehend why you'd force someone to bow when the purpose of the gesture is to display allegiance and respect. You know she doesn't feel that way, so perhaps your intention was to humiliate her. Then he kicks the Duke out and addresses Celaena. He is a dumb, silly boy at this point and he trusts her way too much. So he comes down and starts like circling her, like inspecting her to see like what she looks like and how the mines have treated her. And if she's healthy, she's not, spoiler alert. But he says that she'll do for what they need her for. He says that his dad is looking for a champion, somebody that can work for him and keep his enemies quiet. Basically, like a hired hand assassin. So he's hosting a competition to see who the best champion could be. That person will then work for the king for 6 years and then be given their freedom. Celaena's like, I'll do it if you'll give me my freedom in 4 years, and Dorian agrees. So Celaena's taken away from the mines, and she's given a room with a bed and a proper bath and like food, but she's super sick and hurt and malnourished to the point where she's more comfortable sleeping on the stone ground than sleeping on the bed. In the morning, she's super excited to like feel the sun on her face and get dressed and be ready to leave. She tries to be snappy and rude to Dorian, but he's on his best prince behavior, so he just like takes her taunting and is like, I guess I'll have to try harder to impress you then. We and Dorian learn that she likes dogs also in this moment because he has hunting dogs that follow him around. She's chained to Kale's horse while they travel, which makes sense because they don't really trust her at this point. As they're leaving, she hears like the whips and the cries of the people being left behind in the mines, and this is when she starts to struggle with this idea that like she's gonna be able to earn her freedom, but there's so many other people that are gonna die and that are never gonna be free because of the king and how horrible he is. While they're traveling, we get some good banter between Kale and Celaena. She is very much antagonistic and prickly, but also she loves teasing people. Kale is just grumpy. He's 22, so super young to be captain of the guard, and also he got the job when he was 20, so he must be like a prodigy. He's technically a lord, but he says that he wasn't given the title even though he doesn't have an older brother. So something's fishy there. They stop in Oakwald Forest for lunch. Remember that magic is outlawed, but there are places like where Celaena is from, Terrasen, that feel a little bit more magical, or at least are implied to have more magic connected to them. This forest might be my favorite location in all the books. The trees are described as having jewel-toned colored leaves, like pearl and amethyst and topaz and ruby. Hello, it sounds perfect and amazing and wonderful and everything I want. The guards talk about burning it because they say it's full of hate, and Celaena's like, what do you expect? It's Brannon's forest. We learn that Brannon was Fae, so this forest backs up to his lands, and it was filled with magical creatures. But then obviously when the king came and outlawed it, all of them fled. In the morning, Celaena wakes up and finds little tiny footprints in her tent and an offering of beautiful white flowers waiting on her. They get close enough to Rifthold to see the glass castle where Dorian's family lives. It's this like ridiculous, giant, tacky monstrosity that is built on top of the original stone castle structure. Celaena has a random memory of visiting the castle when she was a child and being dressed up in like really fancy clothes and feeling really uncomfortable, and also remembering a man she had killed just a few days prior. Kale is randomly nice to Celaena, and so she opens up to him and tells him that her time in the mines was terrible, and the only reason why she survived was because there were a few really kind people from another country called Elway that protected her and helped her heal her wounds every time she got injured. Then she immediately freaks out and is like, why did I tell him something so personal? I hope that wasn't a mistake, because she has deep trust issues. We get a small POV shift over to Dorian. He catches Celaena having another nightmare. He thinks that she's beautiful, and he can tell that there's more to her than her bad attitude, but he also knows he probably shouldn't be feeling that way about her, so he pushes it all down and like rolls over and goes to sleep again. They arrive into Rifthold, and now they've got Celaena all dressed up in fancy clothes like a lady. She plays the part even though she feels silly. They're basically trying to pretend like she is somebody that Dorian's brought with him, like to be a member of his court. They don't want anybody to know that she's part of the competition, and she's going to be using a fake identity because the king doesn't want anybody to know that the assassin that everybody was afraid of is a young girl. She's given rooms in the stone castle, which is good because she refuses to go into the upper floors that are made of glass, and Dorian is like, you're like me, I don't like it either. She meets Philippa, who is going to be her personal servant. She is this bold, sassy lady that has no room for all of Celaena's sass and backtalk, which is good because it means they're going to understand each other and Celaena's not going to be able to like bully her. Philippa also tells us that Dorian has a reputation amongst the court ladies, which is why it's easy to pretend that Celaena has just come to be like another girl that he's like flirting with. Dorian meets with his dad. Turns out the king is terrible to everybody, including his children. Like, Dorian talks back to him and his dad is like, I'll just kill you and give your crown to your little brother. Is that what you want? It's clear already. This is only like chapter 3 or 4, and it's already clear that Dorian is not like his dad, and he doesn't agree with the way that the war's been handled and the way that his dad is treating people. He even claps back at his dad and is like, when I'm ruler, I have no intention of pretending to have a title over Terrasen, okay? There's a rightful heir to that throne, and it's not me. As Celaena settles in, Kale takes it upon himself to show her around. He shows her the clock tower, which is this like ugly monstrosity in the garden that he says the king had built around the time Dorian was born, and it's like really ugly. There's gargoyles carved into it. It's like slick black stone. She doesn't like it. There's also strange marks carved into the ground around it, and Kale's like, don't worry about that. It's probably just some stupid sundial. Then he takes her to the library, and she absolutely loses her shit because our girl loves to read. She can't take the books though because she's not of noble birth, so she writes a note to Dorian and tells him that his library is stupid if it's not even a place where people can borrow books. He writes back and sends her 7 of his own personal books, commanding that she read them first so that they can talk about them. But also, she's more than welcome to borrow anything else from the library that she likes, no questions asked. I want to jump off a bridge. He signs it most affectionately, Dorian. The next day, while she's standing on her balcony, Selena overhears somebody below her talking about how she wants to get closer to Dorian, and that's the whole point of why she came to the castle. And who is this girl that he's brought with her? She must be some harlot. So Selena throws a flower pot over the edge of the railing and nearly like knocks the girl unconscious. Cale comes to get Selena and takes her to a meeting with the king. He is very much like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be respectful, you need to not show any fear, blah, 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 blah. But then he realizes that she's like genuinely sick and scared and horrified of the king. So he like quietly is like, hey, he's just a man, okay? You just have to respect him because he's the king. He's still just a dude in a chair with a crown. And then he tells her that she looks rather pretty today. She relaxes and goes into the meeting like a champ. She learns that there are going to be 23 other champions. They're going to be competing and training together for about 13 weeks. And then right after Yule, that's when he'll crown the winner. After the meeting, they run into Dorian and he explains the plan about her new identity. They want to call her Lillian and act like she's a jewel thief from Bellhaven. They run into the girl that Selena dropped the flower pot on. Her name is Lady Caltaine and she's a member of the court. She's a simpering mess over Dorian and both the boys are clearly like, ugh, okay, we need to go. We need to get out of this hallway. Dorian insinuates that Cale and Selena are friends, which means that from now on, Cale has to be nicer to her when he's walking her around so that people believe the story. The competition starts, so the 23 champions start training together every day with members of the Royal Guard. Cale also starts to personally train Selena because she's really out of shape still and very sick. So even though she's still talented and like good, she could be better, and he wants to get her back to like her original strength level. The boys want her to plan to kind of stay in the middle of the competition so that she's kind of like a secret weapon, but also so that the scary men that are surrounding her don't target her and try to kill her on purpose. Which is valid because Duke Parrington's champion is this giant hulking man named Kane, and he's super evil like right off the bat. Selena also meets Knox Owen, who's one of my favorite characters. He's this like sweet little thief dude, very intelligent and kind. He's the only one that doesn't pick on her about the fact that she's a girl. He takes her seriously, and that leads to them kind of forming a bond and starting to train together too. Also, there's this guy named Grave, who is like a creepy, sketchy assassin that Selena is like, those kind of men never stop at just killing. I hate that. First test that the king puts them through is a running competition. Kane, even though he's the biggest dude amongst them, is somehow like front of the pack and like totally unbothered by how much they have to run. Then we meet Nehemia. She's the princess of Elway, and she's come to stay at the castle for a few months. Caltaine has been tasked with showing her around and like teaching the princess the customs of Adarlan, but there's a language barrier between them. Also, Caltaine's being really, really rude about it, even though Nehemia is literally a princess. But Selena can speak Elway, so the princess and her immediately form like a sassy girl power bond. It's clear that they both have tensions surrounding the empire and being so close to the king, so they kind of immediately trust each other on that level. There are rumors that Nehemia has been working with rebels as a way to like undermine the empire and take down the king, but she's come to prove that her family wants to coexist with Adarlan and that the alliance is strong. Cale and Selena start to have lunch pretty regularly, and he starts realizing that he maybe kind of likes being around her, so his feelings start to get a little confused, where like he knows he shouldn't like her and he shouldn't trust her, and she's a danger to Dorian and the king and a threat to the crown, but also she's kind of funny. And he kind of likes the way she makes him feel. And also, he's a guy, so he's, you know, lured in by her prettiness. He goes so far as to open up to her about his life. We learn that he's from Aniel, which is the city on the Silver Lake, and he's been friends with Dorian since they were boys. Dorian is the reason why he wanted to become captain of the guard. His dad thought it was below his position, so Cale had to abdicate his title of lord in order to follow Dorian back to the castle. The morning before the first official champion test, one of the contestants is murdered. Everybody's freaking out about it because it wasn't just like he got stabbed or he got his head cut off or something simple. His body was like shredded into ribbons like by a rabid animal. That leaves everything feeling tense between the rest of the competitors, and everybody's starting to get kind of like taunty and meaner than normal. So even though she's not supposed to show off, Selena crushes the archery competition to prove to everybody that she's talented. Dorian, as crown prince, is receiving pressure from his mom to marry, but he's got no intention of settling down. She goes so far as to like give him a list of brides, and he's just kind of like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Because we get the multiple point of views, we learn a little bit more about Dorian. So we already know that he doesn't want to be like his dad. He doesn't believe in the war, all of that. He also really struggles with like being royal and like fitting in court, and he feels like Kale is his only true friend. He catches Selena training with Nehemia, and he's like, whoa, absolutely not. This cannot be allowed to happen. Nehemia is like, what are you gonna do, Prince? Stop me from doing what I want? I'm a princess, and ends up convincing him to train with her instead. This is also a moment where Dorian starts to get flirty with Selena. She asks him if he's worried about not being as good as Kale with his sword, and Dorian's like, actually, I'm better. So Selena watches Dorian fight with Nehemia and like teach her how to use a sword properly and train her in the way that Adarlan soldiers fight. And she's watching him just like completely smitten. And she's like, uh-oh, do I want to kiss this guy? Girl, me too, I get it. I understand. We also learn that Kaltain is set to marry Duke Parrington, even though she's way too young for him, and we already know she's interested in Dorian. Kale comes in and catches Dorian and Nehemia fighting and Selena watching and all of that happening alone in an unguarded room. And he's like, yeah, no, this cannot go on. You need to go back to your room. Dorian, are you insane? Get out of here. Selena gets so upset with him that she says she hates him most of all. We get a Kaltain POV scene. She's with Duke Parrington, and it becomes excruciatingly obvious that she's using him in order to get close to the royals and hopefully end up with Dorian. She tries to push him a little bit to get information about Selena, who they're calling Lillian, as I said. But Duke Parrington says that Dorian wanting to be with Lillian is absurd, foolish, and impossible, and one day he'll tell her why. Dorian and Kale have a couple tense moments where it's clear that both the boys are kind of starting to like Selena a little bit, but neither of them know what to do with those feelings, and they certainly don't know how to talk about them with each other. So during the sparring incident, Dorian and Selena had jokingly made plans to like see each other later that night. She thought they were kidding, but he actually shows up and catches her playing piano. I love their banter so much. They match each other really well. He's fascinated by how she isn't afraid of him, and she couldn't care less that he's the crown prince, and she just says whatever she wants. And she thinks he's arrogant and pretty and annoying. In this first like solo encounter with each other, he picks on her so much that he accidentally brings up Sam. And then when he realizes he upsets her and she's like shutting him down and being like, I don't talk about that, leave me alone. He's like, whoa, I'm so sorry. I thought we were playing. I thought this was a little back and forth. I didn't mean to bring that up. What happened to your friend? And she tells him that he died and that it happened right around the time she got captured. The second test happens, and it's basically them playing like ultimate capture the flag on the side of the castle walls. Kane and Grave team up against Knox and try to kill him, but Selena gives up her advantage and saves him because he's her only ally. Also, another champion was murdered before the test. On Samhain, our main group of 4 meets up kind of accidentally on the grounds. Dorian is super uncomfortable around Nehemia, and he's been avoiding her because he knows that Duke Parrington has a secret plan to like use her as a hostage in order to get the Elway rebels under control, and Dorian doesn't want anything to do with that. He thinks it's a terrible idea. Nehemia wants Selena to teach her how to speak the common tongue language, and Kale's like, absolutely not, that can't happen. The group catches Kane cleaning up those weird marks around the clock tower, and Nehemia tells us that they're word marks. She explains that it's a language that's ancient and forbidden. It was outlawed around the same time magic was outlawed. She gets real weird and shifty And she also keeps looking at Selena's forehead. So then the girls make a secret pact to teach each other these languages that they both want to learn. That night, Selena uncovers a secret passageway in her room. It leads down to like all these different underground tunnels, and one of them straight up leads to like a river that she could escape on that's unguarded because no one seems to know her room is connected to it. Down another tunnel, she finds like a window to look in on the Great Hall, and she can see the feast that she was told she was not allowed to go to because none of the champions were coming, and yet all the other competitors are there. She was the only one not allowed to go. She realizes that Kale has left his position at the table, and she goes running back to her room, afraid that he'll catch her. But instead, Dorian visits her again, and he's like watching her sleep, and he says to himself that he feels like he knows her, and he's positive somehow that she would never hurt him. Then Kale shows up and finds Dorian standing over her bed, and he's like, "What's wrong with you? Have you lost your mind? I'll help you find it," and throws him out into the hallway. Selena wakes up and sees Kale and is like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, I promised I'd bring you a trinket from the party since you couldn't come." And he gives her a little silver ring with an amethyst stone. Once she actually goes to bed, Selena has a weird dream about the secret passageway. This time it takes her down to another chamber that's clearly like a crypt. She sees one sarcophagus that's of this beautiful young woman, and then another one that's of a dude with a crown holding a sword. Then she's like, hold on, they're both wearing crowns. The woman's coffin also is inscribed with the words Ah times Rift, and she has pointed ears marking her as Fae. So Selena realizes, oh my god, this is Gavin, the first king of Adarlan, and Elena, the first princess of Terrasen and daughter of Brannon. Then Elena's ghost just appears to her. She says that she risked a lot to come and see Selena tonight, but she needs her to know that she has to win. There's an evil dwelling in the castle, and the only way it can be defeated is if Selena wins the competition. Selena swears up and down that whoever Elena seems to think she is not. And Elena's like, I know exactly who you are, be quiet. And then gives her a special necklace that she says will keep her safe. Then Selena has to run off really fast to make sure that she doesn't get caught down in the tunnels with Elena, which is weird because she's dreaming. So who's gonna catch her in a dream? But then in the morning, Selena wakes up for real, and she realizes that the door to the passageway is open slightly, and she's holding the necklace. The next test amongst the champions is canceled because another person was murdered, and this time the body was half eaten. Also, there were word marks written around the crime scene in blood. While Selena is walking through the garden bonding with Nehemia, having their secret girl bonding time, Cain comes over and starts like tormenting them and reveals that he knows that Selena is using a secret identity and pretending to be Lillian. Selena's trying to figure out more about the word marks on her own. Nehemia is still being really kind of nervous and anxious about it. She's like, it's forbidden, you're really not supposed to know more about it. And that's true, like the library even has nothing about it. All that Selena can really figure out is that the word marks are supposedly the thing that like binds the worlds together, and maybe possibly if the rumors are true, there's a way to make like word gates where you can like open portals between the worlds, but none of it makes sense and she's never heard of it before. Dorian comes to see Selena again at night against Kale's wishes. This time they play pool together, and he even does the whole like, let me show you how it's done, and like puts his arms around her, but he also calls himself out on it and is like, you are shameless, that's such a bad trick to do on her, what's wrong with you? So at least he's self-aware. But yeah, they're officially bonding and getting close, and it's getting real cute, okay? He also sees her necklace and is like, that looks familiar. The next test is sparring matches amongst the remaining contestants. Selena decides that it's time to quit pretending she's not as good as she is, and she just takes down Cain's second in command like within seconds. But then another champion is killed, and it's the guy that Selena beat in the duel. It looks like an animal is the one doing these attacks because there's like claw marks on the walls that imply that the animal is like sharpening its claws before it attacks the person that it's gonna kill. Except this time, the guy that died, like the way the hallway is laid out, he should have been able to see the animal before he walked up on it. So why would he have done that? Why didn't he run? Now Selena and Kale are thinking maybe it's a person with an animal, so this one maybe knew the attacker and then that's why they didn't run. It's very confusing. Nobody's sure what's happening. The whole castle is starting to become concerned at this point. Dorian keeps visiting her at night. He's trying to learn more about her, and even though she's hesitant, she can't help opening up to him. He asks her why she likes music so much, and she tells him that creating and playing music makes her remember the time when she wanted to be a healer before everything else happened to her. She asks why he isn't married. He says he doesn't want to marry anybody that's inferior to him in mind and spirit. So our boy wants to marry for love, which is what his mom was like teasing him about before, and he denied it. But now he's like, yeah, no, I believe that if you're gonna marry somebody, it should be the person that you love above all else. Selena is like, that's so stupid. Like, you're a royal. You're supposed to marry for power. Do you not know how this works? Elena comes to visit Selena again in her dreams, and this time she tells her to keep an eye on her right and that the answers will be on her right. The next test is the champions organizing potions. They have to like line them up from least to most poisonous. Selena can't pick between two of them. She looks to her right, and it's the little kid. There's like a younger boy that has been like kind of skating by through all the other things, but he told them in the very beginning that he's really, really, really good at poisons. So she looks at him and he's sitting on her right, and he makes eye contact with her and subtly tells her which ones to switch. So then she's like, oh my God, he's an ally too, just like Nox, and she gets it right. They're the only two that succeed. Selena and Nehemia are getting closer and closer, close enough that Nehemia calls her a friend, and Selena is starting to feel terrible about lying to her. They visit the kennels, and they see Dorian there training some of the new dogs. He explains that there's a new runt that's not doing well, and it doesn't really like anybody, so it's probably gonna have to be killed, and Selena freaks out, and she's like, absolutely not, you just kill it because it's different? What's wrong with you? So Dorian's immediately like, whoa, I'm so sorry, that's how it's done with hunting dogs, but I don't have to. I will save this one for you. Don't worry about it. Nothing will happen to this dog, I swear. Nehemia is like, girl, you like the prince, don't you? But Selena is like, ew, that's disgusting. I can't believe you would say that to me. Absolutely not. She's lying through her teeth. While going back to her room, Selena runs into Kane, and he's like super skittish and weird and so scared and not himself that he like looks through her and then goes running off down the hallway before she can stop him. So she sends notes to Nox, the one that she likes so much that she saved, and the poison kid who saved her, and tells them both not to leave their rooms and to stay safe that night. In another Kaltane POV, we find out that she's taking what is probably like an opiate. So she's drugging herself in order to deal with what she's going through and the fact that she's set to marry a very creepy, scary man like Duke Parrington. She's hiding that habit from everybody, but also maybe he knows about it. He's a weird dude. I don't like him. Nehemia comes to Selena's rooms at night, sobbing, absolutely hysterical, because a group of Elway rebels were caught and killed by the king. We get this random, silly chapter where Selena has recovered so much and she's gained so much weight back and she's eating better and she's healthy, so her cycle comes back. Neither of the boys know what to do with that information, and they have wildly different takes on how to handle it. Kale runs into her first and is trying to like talk to her and get her to come out of the room, but she's telling him she's sick and he's not listening, so she ends up throwing up and being like, my period came, you idiot boy. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, that's so embarrassing, I have to go. And he runs out of the room like a child. She wakes up from a nap, and then Dorian is there. She tries to kick him out, and he's like, you don't want me to hang out with you? I could make you laugh. I could read to you from your books. I could just sit here and you could just look at me. And she's like, Your Highness, I swear to God, get out of my room now. But he hits her with, it's Dorian, by the way, not Your Highness. She says, very well. This man goes, say it. She says, say what? And he goes, say my name. Say, very well, Dorian. Help, I'm on the floor. I can't be trusted anywhere near this man. She's stronger than me. I'd have folded so fast. After this like very intense flirtiness, he breaks down and is like, girl, I'm so sorry. Why am I even forcing you to be nice to me? Why am I in here? Why am I doing this to you? You probably hate me, right? I'm sure you do. I know you hate my dad. I know he hurt you and your family, and this is crazy of me to even think that you would ever want to be my friend. She calms him down and is like, whoa, I don't hate you. And I know you're not like the rest of your family. I believe you. And if she's hurt him at all with her teasing and like picking on him about how he's annoying and the king's son and blah, 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 she didn't mean it. A few days later, they hang out again. And now Dorian tells her that he recognizes her amulet. Turns out he idolized King Gavin when he was a boy and he wanted to be just like him because Gavin believed in uniting the humans and the Fae, and that's why he married Elena. She denies that her necklace has anything to do with Elena, and he's like, yeah, I don't believe you. I've seen drawings of it. You are wearing the Eye of Elena, even if it's just a cheap knockoff. Later that day, Selena finds word marks drawn under her bed, and the one in the center of the spiral is the same mark that was on the latest victim's body. So now she's real concerned. Unable to sleep after she feels like somebody's been in her room to put those word marks under her bed, she goes to the library to try to do some studying and catches Nehemia reading a book that is supposed to be too advanced for her. When she confronts her about this, Nehemia's like, I guess you really are as dumb as all the other ignorant fools in this palace. And she says it in perfect common tongue, which means that she's been lying about her intelligence level. I love her. She's so sneaky. But now Selena feels like Nehemia lied to her too, and she doesn't think she can trust her anymore. She starts to believe that maybe Nehemia really did come to kill the king, and she's the one controlling the scary creature because Nehemia is the only one that seems to know about the word marks. And now there's word marks on the victims' bodies and under her bed, and something's wrong. So Selena starts to believe that it's all Nehemia's fault, and she must be the one doing it. On Yule, Selena wakes up to a bag of candy on her pillow and just goes to town on it because she has a big sweet tooth. Dorian comes to see her holding a basket, and she's like, oh, are you my present, or is there something in there for me? He goes, if you'd like to unwrap me, we have an hour until the temple ceremony starts. Shut up, I can't do this. So the basket that he has with him has the dog in it. The one that he saved from the kennel for her. Yeah, he's been training it so that it can be a house dog. She names it Fleetfoot and says that it's a wonderful gift and she's so excited. Also, I'm just gonna tell you guys now, Fleetfoot makes it until the end of the books, okay? Nothing happens to this dog. It's a safe pet. You can get attached to it. She also kisses his cheek to say thank you, and he turns into a blushing, stuttering mess and runs away. Small detail at the Yule ceremony, the high priestess has a tattoo of an 8-pointed star on her forehead. What's that? You mean like Bryce's scar? Of the 8-pointed tattoo on her chest? Or perhaps you're talking about the 8-pointed star that the priestesses use in ACOTAR? I have so many questions, SJM. Selena is also gifted a golden arrow from a child representing the goddess Diana, who's like the goddess of the hunt and maidens. You can think of her as like Athena or Diana from mythology. Even though she's not supposed to go to this ball either, Selena convinces Philippa to get her dressed up anyway because she wants to keep an eye on everybody and make sure Nehemia doesn't do anything. Oh, I have a child. Say hello. Oh, it's bright. Bright light, bright light. The guards outside her door like her now, especially my boy Ress, so they don't ask any questions and he escorts her down to the ball as if she's allowed to go. Dorian is stunned speechless when she comes into the room. She looks gorgeous in like this amazing white gown, and we already know that he likes white. Like that was something that Kaltain had said about him, so Selena's evil, okay? But before Dorian can do anything, Kale sweeps in and like snatches her off. He's livid that she thought it would be okay to come and she snuck in, but she's like, this could be your Yule gift to me, and so he agrees as long as she promises to behave. So Selena starts to watch everybody, but she feels really dumb because Nehemia is with the queen and she never makes a move or tries to do anything, and then she ends up saying that she doesn't feel good, and so she goes to bed early and leaves. Selena asks if Cale wants to dance with her, and he laughs at the offer and refuses, but then very quickly is like, Duke Parrington is watching, like I can't be seen dancing with you. She tells him that he's wasting his time watching everybody. He's super handsome and anybody would want to dance with him. Before Cale can do anything about this, Dorian sweeps over and takes Selena away. He says that she's beautiful and he hasn't been able to stop staring at her. She's down bad and they spend way too long, like just dance after dance after dance, dancing with each other, even though he's the prince. So he's supposed to like mingle and dance with everybody and not show favoritism. He's absolutely only paying attention to her. Cale gets upset because a random passing court member makes the comment that Dorian looks at Selena like he's in love with her. Kaltain is consumed with rage. And when I say consumed, I mean like something's wrong with her. Like there's clearly more going on than even what she knows. And it feels like there's something inside of her that's like rioting against seeing Selena and Dorian together. Also, her head keeps hurting. She's been having weird headaches the whole time, and that's one of the reasons why she's taking so much of the weird opiate drug. Selena slips away from Dorian and goes to her rooms alone, but then when she gets there, Dorian's already there waiting on her, and he's like, you left without saying goodbye. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I just assumed the other court ladies would keep you occupied, and he's like, I don't like court ladies, and then he kisses her. He does the whole like arm braced above her head maneuver, like, I simply am unwell. Even though she's stupid into it, she kind of freaks out because like she is a slave from the salt mines and was an assassin, and now she's maybe gonna work for his dad and he's the prince. So she's like, we can't do this, and like gets him to leave. We get a double POV at the end of the chapter to show us that they're both like screaming, crying, twirling their hair, freaking out over the fact that they finally kissed each other. Also, Cale is down in the garden looking up at Selena while she's on her balcony, clearly dreaming about Dorian, and he knows she's thinking about Dorian, but he's thinking about her. Yikes. We get a Kaltain POV where Duke Parrington confronts her about watching Dorian too closely. Also, I should tell you that Duke Parrington and the king and a few other people in the court wear these like really big rings that probably like, I think they probably look around that size or maybe like a little bigger of an oval, but they're black, like scary black stone. They're bestie rings between the king and his favorite men. Duke Parrington's pulses though, and then Kaltain gets another random headache. He tells her that Lady Lillian isn't who she appears to be and encourages her to handle it herself, even going so far as to be like, if Lady Lillian is gone, perhaps you could have Dorian. Kaltain agrees to help because that's all she's wanted the whole time. Selena is slowly piecing together what's going on with the word marks. Her current theory is that somebody is opening a gate, summoning a creature, and then having the creature eat the victims, and then in exchange, the creature is giving the summoner part of its power and like letting it like in a symbiotic way, like take from it what it's gaining from eating the victim. Does that make sense? Again, she's pretty sure it's Nehemia since Nehemia is the only one that seems to know anything about the word marks. And at this point, she's planning to just kill the princess herself if it means the attacks will stop. Except when she goes down to explore the tunnels and find proof, it's Cain down there in a summoning circle calling in the creature. He turns and catches her and says, it wasn't supposed to be you tonight, but I can't pass up this opportunity. Then he locks her in the room with it and the creature attacks. Selena's got a big brain though, and so she's like, oh my God, look to your right, the answers are on your right. She realizes that she needs to take the passageway on the right because the tunnels lead down to like a 3-point turn situation. So she goes running down the right hallway, gets to the chamber where the coffins are, and takes Gavin's sword and kills the creature. The sword is called Damaris also. She gets bitten in the fight and it definitely was poisonous, so she's dying, but she goes crawling up to her room and manages to get inside. Nehemia finds her and is like, oh my god, what happened to you? She quickly gets her into the bathing chamber and puts her in the tub. Word marks appear all over Celaena's body. Nehemia starts to chant and she passes out. When she wakes up, Nehemia is still with her and she's like, it's been a few hours. How did you get that bite? So Celaena breaks down and tells her everything, from her real name to the fact that she's part of the competition and she's trying to win to be the king's champion, but also, of course, she doesn't really want to work for him. There was just no other option. It was either stay in the salt mines or come and do this. Nehemia is horrified, but she understands. She tells them that she wants them to stay friends and forgive each other and stop keeping secrets. Then she gives her the name Elentia, which means spirit that could not be broken in Elwë. The king returns from a hunting trip in the mountains, and for some reason the entire hunting party is dead. So remember how Nox and Celaena have been getting closer? Well, they're still training together every day outside of everybody else's training schedule. He can tell something's wrong, and she admits to him that if she were him, she'd leave the castle. He figures out her lies and that she's not who she says she is, but he's not upset. If anything, he's a little stunned that the assassin everybody was afraid of is actually a young girl, and he really just wants to know what's going on. She tells him there's a danger in the castle and she can't tell him anything else, but he needs to leave. He tells her to rip Kane's head off, and then that night quietly disappears. And I'm sad because I really liked him. He's probably my favorite side character in this book. Kaltain has a brush with Kane in the hallway, and she thinks that she sees these like weird shadowy creatures like swooping around him. Celaena is now being haunted by nightmares of her past. Remember those dreams she has about like running through a frozen forest and crossing a bridge and water? Yeah, even the new romance with Dorian is not keeping those scary thoughts at bay. The final test arrives, which is that Celaena, Kane, Grave, and another man who's not important will battle it out so that two of them are left, and those two will fight not to the death, but to like almost death, like incapacitate your opponent so that they can't escape and you could kill them but don't actually kill them is basically what the king says. So Kane beats that random fourth man. Chaol offers Celaena his sword for her fight against Grave, but then Nehemia steps up and is like, I want you to use my staff. They recognize that that is Nehemia saying like fight back for Elwë, beat him with the Elwë staff even though he's trying to crush my people, and Celaena accepts it because she wants that alliance. It's a big deal though that Chaol offered his sword, so she does turn to him and thank him. He's like, for what? And she goes, for making my freedom mean something. She fights Grave. He cheats a little bit and he's also creepy and terrible, but she beats him in like 2 seconds, like way quicker than Kane's fight. Then the king has Kaltain bring over like special wine for Kane and Celaena as like a congratulations for making it this far. It becomes apparent within seconds that Celaena has been drugged by this wine, but there's no time to do anything about it because the match starts. Like I said, immediately she's struggling. So she's slower, her reaction time is off, she's not as strong as she's supposed to be, and Kane clearly knows that they cheated, so he's like taunting her about it. Dorian knows something's wrong too, but he doesn't have the authority to stop the match, and he's worried if he says anything, his dad will either disqualify her or kill her out of spite. Celaena starts to hallucinate while Kane is beating her. She starts seeing creatures and the world keeps like flashing in and out of focus. So sometimes she's in the arena fighting him and then she'll blink and she'll be in this weird like hellscape dimension that doesn't make any sense. She can also hear voices and she says they're calling her by a different, dangerous name. She snaps back into reality and sees that she's laying on the ground now, and like several feet from her, Chaol is also on the ground, so she's passed out. Chaol's also on the ground. They're separated by the line, so he can't cross over and come into the dueling pit, but he's like as close as he can get, reaching for her, begging her to get up. She manages to get to her feet, but she's still getting those weird vision flashes and she can't make it make sense. Dorian and the rest of the people, so Chaol and the king and everybody, they can't see what she sees. All it looks like is that Celaena's on the ground like thrashing and rolling around and screaming, and Kane is standing above her smiling. But then in the hellscape dimension, Selena sees all these doors appear around her and they all start opening. Elena swoops in from one of them and fights off all the creatures that have been attacking her while Kane watched. She can't interfere too much and help Selena win the fight, but she can take the poison out of her body. Kane laughs at Elena and says that his friends told him she was gonna come because they've all been called here, all the players in an unfinished game. What? He also teases Selena about her parents, and we learn a little bit more about that, which is that they were killed in their sleep and she was a kid, so she went into their room and it had been raining that night, so the window was open, so she thought the bed was wet because of the rain. And then in the morning, the servant found her and her parents were dead on either side of her and she was covered in their blood. Isn't that terrible? Nehemia is using her magic with the word marks to help with Elena and lift the hallucinations so that Selena can fight. She gets back to her feet and she has this weird mark on her forehead that Kane can see, and he's like, what is that? And Nehemia sees it and Nehemia's like, oh my god. Back to as much full health as she can be, Selena manages to fight Kane and beats him. The king announces that she's the winner. She collapses laughing hysterically because she can't believe she did it, and Dorian calls for a healer. While she's laying with Dorian, Kane has the audacity to rush up behind her to stab her with a dagger, and before Dorian can do anything, Kale jumps in between them and stabs Kane through the heart. This is the first time that Kale has ever killed anybody, so everyone freaks out. The guards are like, oh my god, Kale, come with us, we'll take you, and they take him away quietly. Selena is like, he did that for me, he did that for me, and Dorian is like, my brother, he's never gonna recover from this. So Dorian takes Selena away so that she can get the proper recovery that she needs, and Kaltain watches this, horrified. She runs over to Duke Parrington and she's like, dude, what the heck? You told me this was gonna work. And she shows him the bottle of poison and he's like, what's that in your hand? Yeah, you heard that correctly. This dude has the audacity to be like, I can't believe you would try to cheat, Lady Kaltain. I know you like Dorian, but you've taken this too far. And the king has her taken away and sent to the dungeons. In the aftermath of all of this, Dorian is finally angry enough to stand up to his dad. He tells him that they should not punish Kale because Kale didn't do anything wrong. He says the king is wrong about Selena, and Dorian knows she's not a monster. Everything she's done, she did to survive. And also, he doesn't want Nehemia used as a pawn in the war. It's not fair, and he believes that their country is better than that. His dad agrees. Nehemia visits Selena and admits that she was the one putting the word marks in her room, but she was doing it to protect her. Word marks can be good or evil depending on who's wielding them. The problem is they have the capabilities to be really evil. So actually it was Nehemia that opened up all those doors and allowed Elena to come through earlier. Nehemia asks if Selena knows what the mark on her forehead was. Selena says no, do you? And Nehemia's like, no, I was hoping you did. I don't recognize that one. Nehemia goes so far to admit that she did in fact come to spy for the rebels. Our girl is a warrior princess. She's planning to bring down the king and the empire. And she gives Selena back her necklace as a way of being like, we're in this together. I know that you'll fight with me. Dorian comes to visit her, saying that he hasn't been able to sleep since the night that she won. He ends up sitting with her, and then he's like immediately tired because being with her puts him at ease because they have such a comfortable friendship with each other. And so he's immediately like, do you mind if I lay down? I'm very sleepy. And she's like, absolutely, go ahead. So he takes his jacket off and his shoes and gets in bed with her, but it's not sexual. It's just friendship vibes. He tells her he's so sorry for not killing Kane himself, and that he knew from the moment he met her that she would win the competition. We find out through a random POV with the king that he knew the whole time Duke Parrington was manipulating Kaltain. It was a big plan all along. So yeah, they have some scary dark power connected to those sketch-ass bestie rings that they wear, and they're planning something way worse than any of us know right now. Kale finally comes to see Selena. He's struggling a lot over the fact that he killed somebody for her, but also he doesn't really regret it because he knows it was the right thing to do. It was just a hard choice. She gives him a hug to say thank you, and Dorian comes in and catches them. Kale runs off, being all weird about it, and Dorian's like, what was that about? And she's like, nothing, I was just thanking him for helping me. And Dorian's like, oh, okay. Well, I wish he wouldn't have fled, because I have the contract from my dad, you're gonna sign it tomorrow, you're officially the king's champion. He tries to kiss her to celebrate, but she pushes him away. She says that they can't continue their relationship because what's gonna happen? Like, what's the end goal here? She's gonna be working for his dad. He's the crown prince. She will not be queen one day. So how's that gonna work? He says he's willing to tell his parents about her if that's what she wants. He just wants to be with her. Then when she still pushes him away again, he's like, I don't understand. Do you not want to be with me? Bestie boy. Oh, baby boy. Kale comes over again that night expecting Dorian to be with her because he knew the whole time that they were meeting up secretly, but she tells him she ended things with him. So then Kale joins her for dinner because they're buddies and it's not weird for them to be eating alone. Okay, whatever. Celaena has one more dream about Elena visiting her. Elena tells her that she could be greater than any of the other rulers one day, and Celaena knows that about herself, and that's what she's really so afraid of. It's all coming back to I am Sam Cortland and I will not be afraid. I told you guys that would haunt us. She tells her that she wanted Celaena to be King's champion so that she could save the people that need to be saved. Celaena thanks her for saving her life, and Elena goes, blood ties cannot be broken, and then disappears. The next day, Celaena signs her contract with the king, and even though she's still afraid of him, she holds her head up high and refuses to cower in front of him. He tells her that if she ever disobeys him, he'll kill Kale, and then Nehemia, and then Nehemia's brothers, and then Nehemia's parents, and everybody else that Celaena loves, and the people that Celaena love. Does she understand? Celaena agrees and signs the contract, but she makes an internal pact with herself to do whatever it takes to keep everybody she cares about safe. The final scene in the book is between Kale and Celaena right after she signed the contract. He asks if she's happy now, finally. She says, well, I might have just signed away my soul, but yeah, I'm as happy as I can be. He asks, do you want to know what your first mission is? And she says, tell me tomorrow. And that's it for Throne of Glass. Next week we'll be jumping into the next book. I hope you guys are excited. This is one of my favorite from the series. I really like the elements of the competition, how it's vaguely dystopian competition-esque, but then it's set in a fantasy world and there's a kingdom and a court system, and Dorian, my boy, I love him so much. If you guys did enjoy, don't forget to like the video and comment down below. I love talking to you guys each week. As always, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys so soon. Have a good one. Bye.